It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
McCutchen. Joey, welcome back to the program, sir.
Because I've been up here in the legislature when
so can you just kind of give us a rundown? Have you seen this article and you know, were you at the Bar Association meeting, or do you have friends that were there?
Yeah, I had friends that were there. Actually, I'm in trial this week, and so wasn't able to attend the Bar Association meeting. But I've read the article, but you know what we can't lose focus of is we can't trade away our right, for everything that Randy Zook thinks is quotes is going to bring jobs to Arkansas. I mean, come on, what's going to bring jobs to Arkansas are meat and potatoes things like lowering tax rates, making sure that we have skilled folks to fill jobs. I mean, we have the lowest unemployment rate that we've ever had in the history of our state now. We never hear about this attack on our Seventh Amendment right to trial by jury until tort reform comes up. Kind of comical how tort reform is going to cure every ill in the country. But what we do know, Paul, is that there's a massive amount of corruption going on in this state. We know that Jason Barrett has been assigned as the special prosecutor to look into prosecuting Jake Files, who, by the way, yesterday had got 18 months for the River Valley theft. And David Norsworthy, who's behind this tort reform effort, he and his partner Michael Morton. What we know is that they gave Jake Files an $80,000, at least Norsworthy gave Jake Files an $80,000 wire transfer 1 week after similar measures were instituted in 2014 to take away our rights. So before we sell our rights down the river, we better be careful.
You're exactly right about that. As I read Randy Zook, Randy Zook is the Arkansas Chamber of Commerce president. Hey, Joe, can you cue up this audio real quick? I want everybody to hear. Anytime I mention Randy Zook's name, I try to make an effort to remind people who he is, what he sounds like. This is Randy Zook's opinion on parents helping their kids with their homework. Take a listen.
Because I've been up here in the legislature when folks were rattling around and screaming bloody murder, and I can't help my kid with their homework. Well, they shouldn't be helping their kid with the homework in the first place. You know, that's a teacher's job. That's my opinion. Well, they shouldn't be helping their kid with the homework in the first place. You know, that's a teacher's job.
As a very elitist mentality, and actually terrifying. I mean, anyway, I just wanted to remind everybody that's who Randy Zook is. He basically is saying that this bad tort reform amendment, he might as well say it's the cure to cancer, Joey.
That's it. I mean, but what we know it does do is put a value on human life when our elderly folks are abused in nursing homes. We know that it puts a value on children's lives. And if we want to encourage bad doctors to come into our state, bad nursing home owners to come into our state, then pass this measure. Conduct rewarded, conduct repeated, and that is not the types of folks we want to attract into our state. We need to make our society safer, not less safe. And to rig the system in favor of special interests, that's just wrong. Mm-hmm. And we better be careful. It's a bait and switch. They want to slam greedy trial lawyers, and then take away our rights. And we saw this happen with Issue 3, where they sold it as ethics reform, and then they increased term limits, and they increased legislator pay. How's that ethics thing worked out for us over the last few years?
Hey, do you think convincing what do we do? I mean, because I'm not a supporter of Issue 1. I could support some tort reform, but not this. This is industry specific tort reform for the nursing homes. Do you think part of the effort here? You mentioned corruption at the top of the interview. Part of the effort to convince the people to vote against this has got to start with telling people what a corrupt state we are, because I mean, it is amazing to me that you have a judge that pleads guilty to accepting a bribe in exchange for lowering a judgment for a nursing home owner. Okay, that is recent history here in Arkansas. You have now the $80,000 wire transfer that we know about. All of this stuff, and we went ahead and did what the nursing homes wanted anyway. I feel like that alone, like before we could talk about what this does or what it doesn't do, I feel like the other side needs to explain that away before we can talk about the actual merits of it, because on its face, red flags go up all over the place when it comes to special interest.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael Morton bribes a circuit court judge to lower the verdict of a person abused in a nursing home, and then his partner gives an $80,000 wire transfer to a state senator. When they can't get it done that way, then they go to the legislature and change the rules. And that's the scary thing. The balance of power, our separation of powers, will be totally disrupted in a highly political legislative body where Michael Morton and David Norsworthy and special interests can go down there and change the rules in a heartbeat and deny access, close the doors to the courthouse to folks like stay-at-home moms and children and our elderly, and that's the reason that folks like Jerry Cox with the Family Council have come out strongly against this. They understand you can't put a one-size-fits-all price tag on the value of human life. Rose Mims with Arkansas Right to Life has come out against it. Conservative after conservative understands that this is anything but conservative, because we value the Bill of Rights, and we know that without a strong Seventh Amendment right to trial by jury, all the rest of our rights are going to be taken away from us eventually. You can't go. You've got to support all our Bill of Rights. You can't pick and choose like it's steak and shrimp on a smorgasbord.
Yeah. In a statement Friday, this is the Gazette, in a statement Friday, Arkansas Chamber of Commerce President Randy Zook said attorneys were exaggerating their claims about the changes in Issue 1. Well, I'll take a play out of their playbook. I'm going to say they're exaggerating how great Issue 1 is. But here's his quote. Lawyers who claim the sky is falling because of the rulemaking authority are simply trying to avoid the real issue at hand, which is recruiting doctors to care for our families, boosting our economy, and preventing excessive attorneys' fees. That's what Issue 1 is really all about. I mean, that's a lot of stuff that Issue 1's about, Joey.
Yeah, and it's just untruthful. If you look at the facts, it's just not borne out. Again, if the type of doctors that we want to attract are the type that are looking whether when they kill somebody in a hospital, if they're one of the 685 people a day die by preventable medical errors in hospitals in this country. That's over 400,000 people a year dying in this country by preventable medical errors by the Johns Hopkins study. Now, that's scary, Paul, and we want to take away the people's rights. I mean, what we need to do is make sure that we're protecting folks and creating better systems and making sure that close to 400,000 people a year are not dying by preventable medical errors.
I mean, who's gonna argue with that? I mean, who's gonna argue with that? I mean, I guess they would. Now let's talk about the rulemaking authority. I noticed that the Supreme Court of Arkansas Chief Justice Dan Kemp, he didn't have a lot of great things to say about this amendment. That he's against it. And that has to do, I would assume, with the blurring of the separation of powers. I mean, you've mentioned the Seventh Amendment. You've mentioned the people's rights. Well, what about the separation of powers argument that the legislative branch should be separate and equal to the judicial and the executive branch?
It is fundamental to the foundation of this country, and that's what our founders knew, that you had to have separation of powers. And the legislature in Arkansas wants to control the rules for their special interests. And again, court rules are made in a very judicious fashion. You have both sides, you have public comment. It takes place over years. What greedy nursing homeowners want to do is they want to control the rules, and through they know they can pay these legislators a lot of money and push these things through in a highly political environment, change the rules of the game overnight, and that's a dangerous concept, and folks like Justice Kemp understand that. Former Justice Annabelle Clinton Tuck understands that, and folks who are paying attention to our Constitution understand that. The separation of powers is critical, and there's a reason for it. And Randy Zook can say that, but it just creates a rigged system, and our constitutional rights are too important to play politics with them.
No, and I was saying this the other day that. Well, first of all, Joey, I was making the point that, listen, all government in some way or another is political. With judges these days, most of them either believe that the law changes over time or the law is what it is. I mean, those are two competing judicial philosophies. So in a lot of ways, politics is already in all levels of government. But it certainly is more political in the legislative branch than it is in the judicial branch. And I know those people down there, and I can't think of anything more terrifying. I know their carefully crafted language. I know how they game the system. I know how they game the people. I can't think of anything more terrifying than the next John Woods or the next Jake Files if this bill passes, or if this amendment passes that we all are going to vote on in November. It's going to be on the ballot. If it passes, the next Jake Files or John Woods is going to slip something in there for some class action lawsuit for some nursing homeowner or something, and they're going to control what the evidence the jury can see or set or consider, and it'll be the legislative body that will have done it, and it'll reek of special interest, and it's going to be devastating to the separation of powers, to our constitutional republic, to all of it. And I don't speculate. I know it will happen if this passes. So, anyway.
It absolutely will happen. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
We've got to start with the premise that there's corruption. There's widespread corruption. I mean, conviction after conviction. John Woods, Jake Files. The list goes on, and we've got to have checks and balances where the system is not rigged against everyday Arkansans. And we're not talking about this bill does nothing about class action lawsuits. This is about everyday. This is about people killed in trucking crashes. This is about people killed by nursing home abuse. This is about every type of case that's going to affect the rights of everyday Arkansans and the families. And we just can't let it happen. And folks need to be educated, and folks need to be reading about issue one and how dangerous it is, because it is dangerous. You just can't take the place of 12 everyday citizens listening to the evidence and making decisions. Randy Zook for special interests, and David Norsworthy's for special interests. They want to put an arbitrary price tag on the value of human life, $500,000, no matter what the circumstances are, no matter how egregious the injuries are. And again, that's the reason that Jerry Cox and Rose Mims and Christian conservatives across this state are coming out against this. They understand the value of human life applies to not just unborn babies, but also children. stay-at-home moms, our elderly. That is the most vulnerable people in society. And somebody's got to stand up for those rights. And I appreciate what you're doing, standing up for those rights.
Well, I appreciate you, Joey. And I got one more question for you. We're talking with Joey McCutchen. He's a Fort Smith attorney. We've been talking about this bad tort reform bill we're all going to be voting on. And I keep saying we're all going to be voting on it because I want everybody out there to know this November, you got to, make your decision up, make your mind up on this. Can I get your reaction to the implication of the governor's nephew, Jeremy Hutchinson, taking $500,000 in bribes? I mean, while we're on the topic of corruption, and it just gives, there's very few people that are calling for his resignation. The governor certainly is not. And you get the feeling that, everybody's been whispering for a long time about who gets extra money on the side and uses their law practice to do it and all this other stuff. But you get the feeling that, these federal court documents and the statement of fact and the guilty plea of Rusty Cranford from the Western District of Missouri in federal court there, that some people are trying to act like, well, it's it's just hearsay. These aren't credible allegations. It's like, come on. I mean, it's right there in the court documents. Joey, can I get your reaction to what's going on with that?
Well, my reaction is I don't know enough about the facts, and I'd want to see all the facts on Jeremy Hutchinson's situation. But what I do know is that all these creations of consultants and lawyers in the legislature who are representing. I think that's been representing these type of entities, and there needs to be some sunlight on that. There needs to be transparency on all these relationships, and we're getting a little transparency. I believe that people are innocent until proven guilty. I mean, maybe the work was legitimate. I don't know, Paul, but I know that apparently we've got people who are paying attention now, prosecutors who are paying attention, and I think that's the important part.
Yeah,
it's just like John Woods. A jury got to hear the evidence. We got more transparency. We got more sunlight, and he was convicted by a jury of his peers. And the bottom line is that principle of if Jeremy Hutchinson's innocent, fine, then he may someday have the ability to prove that in court, or he won't be proving anything, but the government will have to prove the charges against him. But the whole thing smells, because I don't think this is the first time that we've seen these type of arrangements. We see it with Bob Ballinger and his partner Travis Story on this Ecclesia matter. Lawyers who are working for Ecclesia, when one of them's a state legislator, I mean, there needs to be sunlight on those relationships.
Yeah, no, I certainly agree with that. I appreciate it. Joey McCutchen, Fort Smith attorney. Have a great day. You going to court today, right? Have a good day, right?
Hey, I appreciate you.
Okay, all righty. Yeah, Joey McCutchen, everybody. Okay, the telephone number, folks, 870-275-9799. And it's always great to talk to Joey. I think Jeremy Hutchinson should have resigned. I agree with Terry Rice that it's a big distraction. Implicated in $500,000 and taking bribes, preferred family health care. I mean, they're implicated in all of this as well under investigation. It just stinks to high heaven, folks. I mean, it's like what Joey said, and feel free to, the fact is, if you're an attorney, you shouldn't be representing and passing bills for your clients. If you're state representative, or a state senator, we should all agree that just because you're an attorney doesn't mean you can make extra money being a state senator and wielding your power and your influence. We got to take a break. Back in a minute.